just have to say it louder.
Good evening and welcome to the Alumni Field Renovation Advisory and Design Committee. It's Wednesday, September 24th, and at 7:06 we call the meeting to order. And
It's the 14th.
of September. What did I say?
24.
So the agenda for this evening, we will call the meeting to order, which we just did. We'll have public input, so anybody who'd like to speak is welcome to. I just ask that when you do speak, just address the board with stating your name and your address, and any comments should be directed to the chair. We are going to, as a board, have a discussion on project priorities for the renovation. I don't think we have any minutes to approve. We approved 2 sets last week, right?
You should have who took the minutes last week?
Julie. So,
Those are the only ones, but if they're not here, we don't have them.
So likely won't have an opportunity to review those. We most likely won't approve those tonight. We will schedule our next meetings. We've got a few meetings kind of lined up. I'll take a look at what our agenda will be on those meetings. We'll open it up again to the public for some public input and we'll adjourn. So without further ado, I'd like to open up to the public. If anybody has anything to say? All right, jump right in then, guys. Does everybody have a copy of their project priorities, notes?
Oh, I forgot them. That's all right.
Come on, Sheila.
I know it.
Is
Got them
that
memorized.
a copy over there?
Huh?
No, I don't know if that made copies of it.
I got them memorized.
Sheila, if you want to pull one chair over, I can share my laptop with
Mike's a good sharer. All right, so I should have probably brought something to this place so the public can see it, but so many people.
Can we project this?
No, I think we're okay. I think as we bring them up. So I'm just going to read down what we had identified as a list of priorities in no particular order, and then we can have some discussions one by one.
Let's just think about that. So this is a scope, what we're going to read first is a scope of work that is reasonably encompassing, but we may add something in as we talk about priorities. But the point is that it's not prioritized.
Correct.
And I think the goal coming out of here tonight is to prioritize it. And I'm thinking about, it doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It sort of be must have, would really like to get if we could, and sort of then, maybe another strata of, gee, that would be wonderful, but, if that's got to go, that's got to go kind of thing. And within those strata, I don't think anything would necessarily be, prioritized 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just sort of that's the way I'm thinking about it. So I think you're right. I think we should start with the scope of work, but remember, it's a scope of work, not prioritized, and the exercise is to come out tonight with this prioritized.
Glad you hit that, Mike.
Thank you.
You want to read through them?
No.
All right, so first on the scope of work is removal of the crown and create a level playing surface. Design field, second is design field space and dimensions to accommodate high school level competition for football, soccer, boys and girls, lacrosse, boys and girls, field hockey, graduation, camps, family nights. And so we're looking to look the sidelines and the bench areas for the teams, as well as space for cheer team. The existing softball field must be incorporated into the project, either leaving it in the current position or reorienting within the existing facility, or potentially moving it to another location. The bleachers/seating to include alternatives for visitor seating as well. In that, further down the list, we have ADA compliance, but I'd rather just tie it in right now because that's a big part of the bleacher accommodations, the seating accommodations will, in fact, need to be ADA compliant. At the top of the bleachers would be the press box, public restrooms beyond what we currently service the field with, concession stand, athletic and maintenance equipment storage, covered areas for teams and spectators and band, gating and walkways relative to pedestrian traffic flow, evaluate existing lighting infrastructure and provide recommendations for keeping and using as is, modifying and updating, or replacing. Also evaluate the need for additional lighting for any proposed entries and walkways. Perimeter fencing and interior fencing. Parking, vehicular traffic flow, ADA compliance I brought up. And again, not just for the bleachers, but ADA compliance for the entire facility, because it's very difficult to get anybody with a wheelchair out onto the field from the ticket booth to enjoy any of the venues that any of the sports that we have at the venue. Site irrigation, plumbing and water supply for concession stand, restrooms, field maintenance, and all other facility usage. Electric power supply for facility usage. Opportunities for green construction and use, for example, solar panels and composting. Locker room facilities, ticket booth, team bus parking, cameras and security, signage, and I think that's all I have. Did I miss anything, guys? Right. So, since I didn't have it to put up there, I just wanted to kind of run through that so you guys kind of have an idea of what we're going to be going through and taking a look at prioritizing what's before us. So, take them one by one, write down the list. You guys have any kind of have you already rated some?
So the only thing that I would like to do is, I think we can, some of these things, it was good to put in the scope of work, but in my mind, they're implied in any type of project that we do like this. Like ADA compliance is implied, right? It's got to be done, it's code, there's no way we couldn't do it. Site irrigation, if they're going to put a field in, we know that they're going to do their due diligence on how they're going to, make that kind of stuff work. Electric power supply for facility usage, they're going to make sure if they're going to put lights in, they're going to work,
Yep.
So I would take those three out.
So leave plumbing in because
Because we don't have it, and that's a new thing. I think that's got to be on the list. That would stay on the list. I would like it to be applied, but unfortunately, it's not in this particular project.
And drainage, because it goes with the field, right? You said drainage,
Irrigation.
right? Irrigation,
Yeah.
drainage?
Well, irrigation and drainage is two different things, right?
Oh,
Irrigation is
really?
bringing the water in and drainage is bringing the water out. But,
So Mike, did you want drainage? You saying off?
Yeah, drainage should go off, but I would take irrigation off too. When they present us the options for the type of playing surface, I'm sure they're gonna consider that if it's natural grass, that they're gonna give us some options for irrigating.
Sure.
Like right now, we don't have an in-ground irrigation system. There's like a new water cannon, but they use water cannons in the past. They used to use the piping in the past because there's a pond
Yeah.
that they can draw down. So I'm sure that they will evaluate that and come up with, alternatives and stuff, because who would put well, I would hope that a firm like Gale wouldn't be suggesting that we put a field in with no irrigation.
Right.
I think they're better than that. So I don't think we have to beat them over the head with something like that, or distract them from with the list of priorities. So I would take, I'm just striking that out because it's implied.
so beyond that, I think we can kind of work item by item and kind of determine, make the argument for or against whether it should be towards the top. Removal of the crown and creating a level playing surface. And I think you can kind of roll that into design of field space and dimensions to accommodate high school level competition, football, soccer, boys and girls, lacrosse, boys and girls in field hockey, graduation, camps, family nights, things like that. I think those can kind of.
Yeah, I think the priority that we've talked about is to redo the facility so that we can maximize the benefit of it and have it available to as many teams as possible, both on an interscholastic and a youth sports level.
I had taken the first 5 bullet points, ground, the design, like you just said, synthetic or natural, sidelines, and then incorporating the softball field one way or the other. I grouped those into one. Like that's what we're here. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. So I don't think any of those things can come off the list. I think they have to be top priority. I would imagine, they're dealing with the field they're going to be anyways. So that's how I just grouped all those together.
I have to agree with Mike, I did that too. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty much the design of the field. ADA compliance going to come with it because
It's cool.
it's code. So if I was looking at this list and saying, all right, what are my priorities, and I'm looking at a bunch of different perspectives. We're gonna fix the field, coach's perspective, we're gonna fix the field, so we can sort of sideline that. Volunteer, if I was a volunteer in that snack shack, I would say my priority would be running water and electricity that doesn't buzz and make you go deaf. So, so I would say, and public restrooms as well would be a priority. I think if you're gonna build a facility that is ADA compliant, that is open for the town functions, you need toilets.
So, concession stands above the rest of us. So I guess we can do this like a tier 1, tier 2.
I mean,
Tier 1, tier 2.
yeah, I think that Mike's right. The first 5 things that are oriented towards the playing field, including the softball field, have to be on, those have to be done. And we know that the bleachers, seating, press box, public restrooms, and concession stand have to be done.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're trying for. We're trying for a multi-use facility that can support fundraising, that people can come in and be comfortable. Right now, the things that we don't necessarily have or are able to maximize the benefit of. We have a concession stand, but we can't maximize the benefit of the concession stand because it's rudimentary at best. So, I would draw the line that everything from concession stand up has to get done. It has to be in the project.
So that's your baseline design.
That's the baseline design. Right.
For what it's worth, I had the restrooms a little bit farther down. I think we could, if the budget gets tight, we could bump those down and continue with what we're using now. As much as I wouldn't want to do that, I definitely want to see restrooms there. But, if again, if the budget gets tight, maybe we...
I mean, I might concede that in terms of fitting it as the last thing in the top tier, but there's nothing below that I would rather do than have bathrooms.
Well, what about fencing, for example? Like, you need that.
Yeah, so what I think about fencing is, again, is like, we're gonna have fencing. There's not gonna be fencing, but what I would put it down on the lower in the list is because we might just say, give us show us some nice fencing, but make sure you include the most basic fencing so that we can make a determination of if we're starting to get towards the limit of the budget, we're going with the basic fencing.
Yeah.
One of the things we saw with the working kind that Sean Reardon did for us to kick this thing off was, it was beautiful. I mean, stone walkways and all that kind of stuff. And hey, if we can get it, and it fits in the budget, why wouldn't we do it, But we're gonna have a walkway, we are gonna have fencing, we just might have it be, pretty basic stuff. But I wouldn't give up and have like a nicer walkway or nicer fencing and sacrifice restrooms. I would get down to the basics on that other stuff in order to keep the restrooms.
Maintenance building, locker rooms, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did we get information that indicates we can negotiate it all with restrooms? I sort of thought the last information we had, restrooms aren't, we have to, it's not really a choice.
So
So I'm sorry if I missed it.
No, we didn't bring anything.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, we didn't miss anything. I've started to collect data from other projects that have been done.
Yeah.
At the collegiate level as well as the high school level.
Yeah.
There's nothing, Gail will not come out and say to us, you don't have to build to this code.
Sure, of course.
So I think it's incumbent on us to say to them, we're going to go for whatever waivers we need to go for, similar to what some other communities have done. And some communities have, in fact, done what Michael just said, where they've
Yeah, like
continued.
so legitimate, right, we're talking about legitimate waivers, right, just to clarify for,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we can't just not do it. because
Right,
it's not a project.
that's where I was coming from.
So we kind of have to think about this.
Well, right, exactly. Okay, so, but it sounds like from what you are starting to find, there might be a possibility that there's a way to maybe delay or roughen plumbing instead, or, that type of thing. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's how I feel
That's your
right now.
that's your understanding for now. Okay.
I would like to proceed.
Have we tried going, school department to school department with other towns that have just built facilities?
Well,
and
that's
figure
kind
out-
of what Chuck's initiating that effort, to talk to people who have been through this process and haven't built 25 bathrooms. They built 4 or 6 or 8, whatever it was, and to determine how they managed to do that, given the information that we have, which is, we're being told the code is much more stringent than that. Well, it's like you say that, but yet, when I walk around, I haven't seen anything that, like what they're
Taj
describing to
Mahal
me. Yeah, well, you know,
bathroom
just the volume. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it. You know, if you go to college, I guess you see it, but they,
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny you say that. Joey's at Western New England. I went to a game there last weekend, and they just built this beautiful pavilion for the fields. And the new turf field and stadium seating. You have to walk over to the pavilion, which isn't terribly close, but it's around the lacrosse, the field hockey, soccer, the baseball, the softball, and the football stadium. And it's got 2 stalls in each men's room and ladies' room. That's it. 2 stalls, brand new facility. Literally, last season was the first season they used it for the second half of the football season last year. So
So there's some way to do
2015.
that.
somehow,
Yeah.
and
So-
you know, it's not convenient to get to the field house from where the fields are located either, so.
Are you in touch with other boards of selectmen?
I've reached out to some other schools.
I just wonder if there's, you know, a situation like ours where our school owns the field.
Yeah.
They built it. I just wonder if it makes sense to, you know, maybe Mike Lynn, AD to AD.
Mike has done some of that.
Yeah.
I know that he's reached out to Lunenburg, he's reached out to, I believe, Neshoba Tech. He's reached out to, I believe, Neshoba Regional as well, and Clinton. Clinton has
Yeah.
a beautiful facility there as well.
So we will figure it out, right? But
Right.
the point is in terms of priorities, back to your point, Mike, is I think as we've gotten involved, I don't know, personally, I feel like we really kind of should have a couple of indoor bathrooms.
I
You know,
completely
and
agree.
I would give on several other of these things before I would give on bathrooms. Like I would give on the personally, and we're waiting to get feedback from Mike on this, but I would give on team rooms as long as that there was cover,
Right.
you know, and have bathrooms versus vice versa. You know, if they're saying, oh, no, team rooms are cheap, you just box them in,
Right.
you know, no plumbing, you could do that easy. I mean, whoa, I want 2 stalls at least for, you know, maybe 2 for the men and 4 for the women.
Yeah.
Let's do this, you know, and we'll live without the team rooms, you know, we can phase that in later maybe, I don't know. But I'm kind of hanging on.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same wavelength. I
Restrooms
just-
should be-
My only concern is budgetary.
Yeah, I get you, and we may get an unhappy realization down the road that it is gonna have to
Right.
be one of those things we can, you know, think about doing without, but.
But you brought up team rooms, and this says locker rooms, correct?
Yeah,
On
the
this
bottom.
list?
Yeah, sorry, locker room. yeah.
I do not believe, I think that should go right to the bottom of the list. I don't think we need locker room facilities there. It would be nice for the teams, but I don't think they're essential for the teams. It would be nice to have cover for the teams to go and meet, but not a locker room.
And I mean, there's ways to do that as well. I mean, anytime
Right.
anybody's gone to a tournament, whether it's been a lacrosse tournament, soccer tournament, whatever, or a football jamboree or field hockey jamborees, there are temporary tents and things that can be put up. So, I think that's certainly something that was at the bottom of my list.
Locker rooms.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And then, no matter what team, what facility we go to for the scholastic sports, we're not going to a locker room.
No, not at all.
So,
Something
I
else.
don't feel as though we're coming up short, pardon me,
That's your basketball.
all basketball. Anything that we use from that.
I was just gonna say something else, talking about the bottom of the list that I bumped way down was parking in the vehicular traffic flow. I can't see that. I can't see us being able to incorporate that into the budget. I mean, it would be great to be able to fix that, add more parking, and, you know, maybe we can. I just, rather see the money go to the field itself. I don't know if there's other ways of funding that, other than coming out of the budget for the field, while we're doing it, and
Well, again, I wouldn't necessarily want to be making an assumption that we could or couldn't afford it. I would leave that to the designers to help us understand that. Having said that, what I would think about is that you know, we have parking like, we don't have to build a driveway, we don't have to build parking, we have it. We would like to improve it, we would like to have more, but I would put it in the middle tier where it's in the scope of work, we want you to think about it and cost it out and see what you can come up with good ideas and be creative about it so that we can realize some benefit. And, you know, Sean Reardon's Gift in Kind, and when we interviewed the design candidates, they all had some work done on that. They had some ideas. So none of them dismissed it out of hand saying, forget it, you're never gonna be able to do it, we're not even worry about it, we'll put it over here. Having said that, they weren't thinking about budget, they were just thinking about getting the contract, and they were trying to show us how creative they were and that they had read the scope of work and weren't dismissing anything out of hand. So I would let them take a shot at it but I would put it back towards the, you know, we can live with the project without it because we have traffic flow, we have parking. It's not like we're breaking ground on a brand new facility where there'd be no way. We couldn't, you know, we're not gonna park on grass or dirt or, you know, four-wheel it into where we're going, but we're not dealing with that situation here. So I would leave it in there, kind of, in the second tier.
I think the beauty of working with I'm sure they'll do the same thing as having worked with Gail in the past. They have a cost estimator on staff, so they have the ability to pull stuff out and put stuff in real easily, and we can kind of see the number move.
So I guess what we discussed, I think last week, kind of was eye-opening to me, a little scary in that we have to create like a list, and we can't, the alt-ad list, as we call it, but we can't manipulate that list based on what we have left in the budget.
Once it goes out to bid, the contractors award, we have to define what absolutely has to be done. And anything, if they find that they save $40,000, we've got a list of other stuff that we wanted to add if they found money, then we can move that alt add list.
And we can pick from that? No, you have to prioritize it, right?
We have to prioritize.
But that is at a level of detail that we're not even going to approach tonight.
Not even close.
Because they've got to go through their design process and cost it. Because it's their costing that's going to make ours determine what goes on the alt list and what stays in the initial project scope.
So we'll have numbers before we prioritize that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
for
Nice.
sure,
Yes.
for sure.
And then those decisions aren't made. They'll be literally doing work on the field. We'll be meeting, PMBC will be meeting probably with us, to determine if we want to move things up.
Okay. Sorry.
And have them done.
Okay.
It's kind of like if you ever watched that Joanna Gaines show where,
No.
she always gives them it's one of the HGTV shows.
Another one on the
Sure,
list,
watch it.
while I'm looking at this, it's storage facility, storage,
Maintenance and storage.
athletic and maintenance equipment storage. Can't that be sort of added on to the concession stands or the booster stand where they sell the equipment?
Again, level of detail that they certainly can design it that way. We
So if
could
we're
direct them to
gonna,
do it that way.
first tier, second tier, third tier, concession stands on first tier, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
So can we just put it in with that, or you want to put it on second tier to see if
I think we
can do
should put it on second tier because equipment storage is a very generic term.
Okay.
You know, storing the chains for a football game
Yep,
and the field markers, you can put those in the closet.
Right.
We could, or you can put them right in the concession stand if you had to. But storing, you know, a small tractor or, you know, other bigger things, like, we would love to do it there if we're gonna be
Right.
using it all the time, but we don't have to. We have garages in town, and we can just bring the thing back and forth as we need to. So I think as we talk to the designer and let them know, like, hey, we need some basic equipment storage, just, you know, your normal run-of-the-mill stuff, but we would also, if we can get some other storage, we will make use of it. We won't have a problem making use of it. And again, they're gonna be looking at, okay, well, based on your list of priorities, you've got that kind of, that expanded equipment storage on the second tier. If we can fit it in the budget, if we can't, we will. If we can't, then, okay, we're gonna let that one go. And they'll tell us, we're not, you know, that,
Right.
you know, we can do this much, but if you want that much, then you're gonna have to give up on something else. And then we would say, okay, on that, based on that prioritization, no, we'll just go with the basic.
I guess I wasn't thinking of small tractors. Yeah. I was thinking of actually EMT, you know, things that have to be lugged onto the field every week.
I mean, you know-
watched Denise lug things on the
Yeah,
field every
again,
week. Is their story.
It would be great to be able to put all the field hockey
Right.
and lacrosse goals on site. But if we couldn't, we'll bring them up to high school, and then bring them down when the season starts, leave them there, and then bring them back.
Right.
We can manage that. But if they're like, oh, no, we can build you a pretty good-sized shed that all this stuff can go into, well, we would probably think about taking it. So that we don't have to go through all that
Sure.
labor to
Yeah.
be able to, use the facility. But we would also tell them, but we can live without that. We can make it work if we have to. And those are the kinds of decisions that we're gonna end up making. Hopefully we won't have to, but,
I think especially if the field is not grass, you avoid a second trailer move for the grass equipment for, part of the Russell Street fields, and then synthetic turf equipment
Right.
if the field ends up synthetic. So I'd put that at like 1.5,
yeah.
just from that angle,
Yeah.
from a, saving on labor and time
Oh,
standpoint.
yeah, you're right. I would,
And having stuff available if,
I would like to think they can get it in there,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I would put that towards the top of the second tier, for sure.
So locker rooms, we said was third tier.
Yes.
Yeah.
The covered area for team and spectator, that's second tier?
That,
I think I have that in third tier. I would have it in third tier. We
That's
don't-
something we can do later too,
It
I would think.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's something we could have,
Yeah, that could be.
From a
easy
priority
to do.
standpoint, I mean, it's definitely a nice to have, and I mean, especially on, a 42-degree rainy night, I mean, that's a bad night to stand out, but again, looking at what we're trying to accomplish and, where we can easily do something after through like some quick fundraising for one specific thing, or, hey, we didn't get much snow, let's spend, $40,000 on, so
If we don't
I'm
do
okay moving it down.
sorry, if we don't do locker room facilities though, does that then elevate covered areas for teams, not necessarily spectators? I thought I heard you say that earlier, Mike, that you'd want to see at least.
I mean, I had it in the second tier because I think that a covered area shouldn't be all that expensive to do. I think the harder part for the designer is just making it work within the aesthetic, the footprint of what they're trying to do with a concession stand or bleachers or things like that. But I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt to think they can execute on it, and I'm thinking that it's pretty short money, but I don't know. I don't want to make that assumption. I mean, to Julie's point, I mean, if it couldn't be done, then we can definitely do it later, and I would, the things we have in the second tier right now are equipment storage, covered areas, parking and traffic, and I have walkway and lighting for any new walkways. I mean, I would go for the equipment storage before the covered areas, but I would probably do the covered areas before I would do anything else out of those items.
so covered area I have in tier 3 as well.
That's fine, put it
Because-
there. I hopefully will be pleasantly surprised, and they're gonna be like, oh, that's easy, don't worry about it, we can definitely get that done.
Yeah, I agree. I think among the second tier that, covered space for teams.
But I think we also should convey to them, make sure they understand that it's either locker rooms or covered areas, we don't need locker rooms and covered areas. I mean, it'd be nice to have a covered area,
Yeah,
but,
or maybe it's done at a later date
yeah.
or something like
Right,
that.
they could design it so that, that we could do it later, but.
So we're grouping walkways as far as getting to the bleachers. Are we grouping that in with the ADA compliance?
Well, again, I would put it on the second tier, again with the idea of, the same thing about fencing, is that we know we're gonna need walkways. And if we have a walkway, we know we want it to be lighted. But again, the idea should be, it's in the second tier because we want you to remember that we will live with the most basic execution of that. Don't, pump that up at the expense of the other stuff that we need to get done. That's the only, all the designers, like, they love the walkway idea, and they want to make the space work, and they were very, that's what they do. So they're going to put walkways in. It's not like they're going to just, people are just going to be wandering aimlessly out of the parking lot like a cat, herd of cattle. It's not how it's going to work. They're going to beat us down. But again, I'm just trying to convey to them that we want walkways, but just make sure that you give us alternatives in terms of cost and level of material and, Would we love 3 walkways from every possible place that people are gonna park? Yeah, but maybe 2's the right number because 3 is gonna get too expensive and the materials becomes an issue and things like that.
You hit everything?
What's that?
Did we hit everything?
I think except for some of your additions. We don't have them at the.
Ticket
Ticket
booths, lighting and ample egress access area.
Oh, what about the existing lighting?
Oh, yeah.
Evaluating that.
They've all taken a look at it.
Right. I mean, I put that towards the bottom because I think, again, they gotta understand, is like, we have functioning, decent lighting, and if they wanna blow that up, they gotta make sure that it's in the budget for all the rest of the stuff we wanna do. Otherwise, we're gonna keep it and use it because it's there. And there's no reason not to, other than, I mean, we could do better, no question. And really, the only time that anybody talked, of the designers, when we were interviewing them, talked about moving the lights was because they were going to reorient the field. If they weren't going to reorient the field, none of them said, oh, you got to get rid of those lights, those things don't work. I mean, looking at the actual lighting, the poles, infrastructure was fine. And the power and stuff, I think there was no reason to worry about them. They might change the fixtures and make it more energy efficient, things like that. But in terms of, you know, moving the whole, like literally knocking them down and rebuilding them, sure, I guess, but boy, we better get everything else on top of that in the budget.
Yeah, no, I wasn't envisioning knocking it down.
I never was either, but
It just says evaluation on the
Yeah.
list, I don't know. So, yeah, no, I would agree, third tier for that.
I have a possible add-in if we haven't talked about it yet. I'd like to stick, actually for tier 1, roughing in plumbing and electrical.
If we don't go full.
If we,
keep it
yeah,
in,
like,
keep it in.
just as a contingency, to stick in tier 1, to just, like, plan ahead if, you know, if something gets, it is not possible for whatever reason. I think doing the subsurface work and roughing in and thinking ahead for the things that we want to do, you know, would make a huge difference in the future, especially, again, if we're looking at, you know, available funds here and there to try to make something happen. That subsurface work could go along
I think that's a
with
good point.
to helping that, so I'd like to stick that on tier 1.
Yep. Because you don't want to rip it up and do it again.
No, and that costs a lot more money,
Yeah.
you know, your shed just, you know, increased by $10,000.
Chuck, you said ticket booths, but we didn't reach a consensus on that.
I think it's tier 1.
Ticket booths?
I mean, you got it.
Well, yeah, how else are you gonna
Yeah,
sell
you gotta
tickets?
have it, yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends, I guess, I think we need
Reuse
to
the one
incorporate
we
it.
have?
But we just got that gift of the new ticket booth from Rotary and
Maybe they
OIBS.
can,
Repurpose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I'm not saying
Right.
we dump it,
Right.
but, I mean, to your point about the fencing and other things, it may be an opportunity for us to
Right.
hold off for now on a new ticket booth
Right.
and a new grand entrance with, you know, a nice archway over it and,
right.
yeah, nice
Everybody's
to
name on
have.
bricks.
Yeah. But those are things that might be able to do down the road, might be able to, I don't know.
So where do you want me to put it?
As far as the ticket booth?
Yeah. Even if we need a ticket booth, even if we
Yeah.
keep what we
I-
have. So I'm
I
gonna
would-
keep it at tier 1.
Yeah, tier 1, and I think the idea would be, you know, ticket booths and use existing, if the new ones are if new ones are too costly, you know, you have them, just make do with the ones we have. You know, if there's an opportunity for some economy of scale or savings, then it's gonna get us something else that we wouldn't otherwise get on our list of things that we really feel need to be done, then, you know, make it work.
All right, can I read you the list so I can make sure I have everything? Just for you guys, just to
Sure.
say.
Do we want to talk about, we had team bus parking, cameras / security, signage? We want to incorporate those. I think that if we're putting the press box, we're going to have all the utilities going in the press box, and we might be able to tie into those across the streets for security system.
But I think it's important, security
I don't know,
system.
is it,
Well, the snack shack has been broken into, granted, it's,
I would think we want to protect the field. You know, vandalism on the field, the ruined field.
So the way that was addressed for the track is the intention, I don't know, I never saw it when I was executed. Some of the cameras were going to be reoriented from Russell Street
Right.
to Hammond to track.
So here's the thing, the school system has a extensive security camera system on all the buildings. It's been getting better as the years go on, and we've done some capital funding for it, so it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it used to be. In my mind, that, because this will be primarily a school facility and it's on school grounds, we, as a school committee, would probably be thinking like, we gotta put some capital towards that. Now, ideally, from our point of view, if it could get in this budget, and then we're just helping, hook it into our existing system so the tape runs, and, because we have cameras out in the bus area already, that already happens. So, I mean, I think it should be on the list, but there might be an opportunity for us to, if we couldn't get it done in this project, then the school system would probably be, we're gonna get it done eventually, because we're not gonna be comfortable having a facility that we don't have camera coverage on, especially one that's brand new and used as much as this one's gonna be.
so keep it on the tier 1,
Yeah, I think so.
and then go from there, see how the conversation
Yeah.
works its way
And that
out.
could even be, security could even be motion sensors, so that lights pop on.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you walk across the field at 10 o'clock at night.
I think that we should ask the designer to, cost it out.
Yeah.
It's an easy thing to just say, again, maybe it's cost it out and make sure you pull the wire so that if we can't hook the cameras up, because we can't afford to do it now, we'll do it later. And we'll do it as part, but exactly, but maybe, as long as we get the infrastructure in, that's the most important thing, because we don't have to do that after the fact. So I would definitely put that on there.
So as far as signage, do you think that's something that's down bottom?
Of the tier 3? No,
What are we talking about for signage? Like,
what is allowed and not allowed
I
on the
was thinking
field?
to me, that's implied. Like, they're not gonna build a brand new facility and then,
Not give us signs?
I think
You think that the people give us
this one on the
signs?
list was identifying facility, whether it's the overarching grand entrance, welcome to
Alumni
Alumni
Field.
Field. or-
We're not naming it.
Not, it's Alumni.
We don't get to rename it. So you're talking about the entrance sign. I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking of signs on the field, because every time I go to a field, it's what is allowed and not
Gatorade,
allowed
yeah.
on the field.
I mean, I think it's obvious that we're gonna do that. We're gonna come up with
Okay.
all kinds of things, like who can use it, when they can use it, how it can be used, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and then we're gonna have to be able to communicate that to the public, like the same way we do with the track. The track has signage.
Yeah,
but,
they do.
that was all executed by the school department and the LTO.
Okay, so that's not
Yeah.
something that we have to think about now, other than entrance sign.
Right?
Yeah,
We're talking about.
it will get done, but I don't think it's,
Yeah.
that's a pretty.
I don't think it's tens of thousands of dollars either. I think it's gonna be,
But I think it's important to have on the field.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do need to identify.
Because even though we
Oh,
have.
yeah,
no-
there's gonna be a whole nother discussion about policies and procedures and, control and, all that.
Because even if, we have no dog signs up at the high school, and there's still
Yeah.
dogs all over those fields.
Sorry, I just looked down and saw some of my notes. Relative to fencing, obviously we need EMT access. Again, probably applied,
Yeah.
but just want to get it out there.
Yeah.
So do you want to put that with tier 2 then, the signage? Maybe if it comes later, I don't know.
Signage,
For that welcome
Signage you're
to
talking about,
Alumni
or you-
Field? Welcome to Alumni Field?
I think we can find a way to.
Put that on
make
tier
happen.
1?
No, I think it can fall down the list, frankly.
Tier 3?
I think I'd rather have a safe, usable surface with safe, usable bleachers and press
Yep,
bombs
me
and
too.
bathrooms, nothing. Alumni Field sign is going to cost big money.
Put it on the top of the alt ad list.
Yeah, it could be on the alt ad.
Written brick.
Each of the designers have stated that they, when possible, they do incorporate green construction. So, that's.
Yeah, I think that should be an overarching
So,
thing.
I don't know if we need to
That goes with the
prioritize
top
that
first
specifically.
tier.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's ADA too. It's
Yeah.
sort of the same deal.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you have to do this, you should do this, you know.
Under the cameras and security, I know that we had talked about sound system. So if we're doing the press box, I think that's, again.
Yeah, I think press box, exactly. I think that, press box could literally be a press box, but I think in this day and age, there'll be opportunities to discuss sound systems, control boards, scoreboard access,
Or at least-
wireless
Or at least a
systems.
lanyard, so that the AD can strap himself in when he's
Exactly.
hanging out over bleachers.
And again, I think the point of emphasis has to be like, we want a functional press box, but we don't need it to be, Foxborough Stadium capabilities.
So press box is in the first tier,
Yep.
but sound system is in the second tier? Are we separating those two?
I think we're getting into what's going inside.
Exactly. I don't think we need to worry about it. I think that, right.
Oh, you
You
was
know,
talking
so-
about sound
No, I
system,
brought it up,
so.
but I just,
I
it's
shot
stream
it
of
down.
consciousness, yeah. Like, politely. Michelle, you want to run down it just so we can all,
So we have the top five, I didn't list them, I just said the top five were tier one. Rough and plumbing and electrical is tier one. Ticket booth is tier one, but maybe be able to use existing, depending on that. Security is tier one. Green construction and press box, all tier one. No?
what was this one?
Press box,
What was
Reconstruct.
green construction,
okay.
tier one. Yeah. Tier two, I have expanded equipment storage maintenance.
Maybe
Parking,
in parentheses next to that. Possibly attached to concessions.
okay.
Because they, to Mike's point about the footprint, maybe they, just to state that. it doesn't
Yep,
necessarily
that's
have to be A separate building, an outbuilding that they could in fact enlarge the.
Parking and traffic. Fencing and walkways all lit with light, tier two. Tier three, locker rooms, covered areas for teams and spectators. Although Mike and Julie said that would be a tier two for them, so I put a little line in between. Existing lighting, what we're gonna do, are we gonna use the existing lighting or are we gonna knock it down? And signage, I have in tier three, did I miss any?
The only thing we didn't talk about was, I guess it falls into parking as well, as we specifically called out team bus parking.
I know, I
We
was-
originally
I know.
spoke, it's one of those things that no matter what stadium the team goes to, find a way to offload the team and then the bus driver finds a place to
Right.
park the bus. So it's, I don't know if we need to specifically design a team bus location. I do think, and it's the details again, and policies and
Right.
procedures, I do think we need to make sure that the buses are no longer located at their current location when we get, if we get this all
Moon Helen?
renovated, completed. The buses can't, in my opinion, the buses shouldn't be there on any given event at, whether it's graduation, whether it's a jamboree, whether it's Friday night game, or it's right at, it's probably 40 or 50 spots that are being taken up by where the buses are located. And I think that they could be really relocated pretty easily. We don't have to, the bus drivers don't have to go to Shirley or to D-Bus every morning and every afternoon to pick up the buses. We're pretty lucky to be able to
Yeah,
house
we
them
are.
in Littleton. And that's a benefit that we
Negotiate
it's
the
about
contract.
negotiate in the contract, so.
So I put team bus location in tier three.
I thought they were there because they saved money because they park on site.
Was negotiated in the
Is that-
contract.
Okay.
That they're stored
Oh,
locally,
so that's-
but they don't have to be
Not
there.
on that site,
Right,
They don't have to be
okay.
there, they just gotta be.
in Littleton, so they're not going.
Right, so we're not
every
sending
day.
it back to Shirley.
Right, correct. Yeah, we wouldn't want that. That's not gonna probably
That doesn't make a lot of
be-
sense.
Yeah. But we can talk about either a new location or moving it as
Redesigning
needed
it,
for use
yeah.
of the facility. That we can work out. But that's a Littleton thing, that's not necessarily,
Sorry,
But
Helen.
that's a school committee.
yeah, it's a Gale thing. It's not a Gale thing.
Right.
The only thing that we didn't put on here, which I don't necessarily, it was in the scope of work, and all the designers that we talked to clearly understood it, but they need to be cost both synthetic and natural turf options and show us, what the cost is, usage, replacement, maintenance, all that kind of stuff, so.
That was in the top 5, though, right? That was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's part of the field design process. And like I said, we're not telling them anything they didn't already, were well aware of. But we haven't talked about that tonight. I just didn't want people to think we were forgetting about it. That will get done.
The only one we haven't really mentioned is softball field. Was that
Well, that's
top?
top five.
Top
Yeah,
five?
it was in
All
top
right,
five.
never
This
mind.
is softball field must be incorporated in the project.
Okay.
No, I guess I can wait until we're done with this part. I have a timing question.
How about
Okay,
it?
so for the, costing, the natural and synthetic, I know, at the beginning of this process, it was like, the designer's gonna come in, they're gonna cost both, we're gonna have conversations, we're gonna have public hearings about it, we're gonna get the public involved. How do you envision that going between like September 28th and October 20th-ish? I'm just wondering how I honestly, how are we gonna accomplish, like,
So I think that a
Getting
lot of that's already
everybody-
happened. I think
Okay.
we've had the field turf guys, one of the field turf people in,
but we don't have
Ian
data
Lacy
in front of
came
the
in.
public.
So Gail knows that they need to do that, and they know that they're gonna have to be in front of the public at least once, and they didn't seem to think that was gonna be a problem.
Okay.
So there will be.
There's time
Yes.
set in,
Yeah.
that's my question,
It'll be in the
is the timing.
next 6 weeks, so,
Well,
but
exactly.
they know that. Their assumption is that they will be able to execute and get less. And it won't just be that, it'll be
Everything
public
that-
input on their whole design.
Sure, yeah.
So
I'm just trying to
I don't think we're
envision
gonna
how
have
this is
5
going.
opportunities for that, we may only get 1 or 2. We may get 1, we give them comments, they
Yeah,
go
I think
back, they
like 2 is
do another
necessary.
iteration, and they show us the end result, and maybe we tweak it 1 more time before we get to town meeting, but I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be, but they knew that, and they were the ones talking about, when do you want us to meet with the public, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, so.
And are they gonna do the survey too? You had mentioned the survey, Chuck, are they gonna get a survey going?
This possibility exists. I don't know.
Okay.
We don't have them under contract.
No, I know we don't, but I'm just, again, thinking, like, from a timeline standpoint, how to expedite and
Yeah.
accomplish what we're trying to
What's
accomplish.
the survey supposed to try to accomplish?
Just getting public input.
I'm wary about surveys in that regard. I have problems with them because it's hard to do a survey well. It's very hard.
Well, it sounds like they've done them in, like, dozens of communities.
They've
Yeah.
done their version of, surveying as a practice,
Oh, sure.
it's very difficult to do well. I would argue that we've had multiple opportunities for people to come and tell us what they think. And we have that, we're monitoring social media. I don't necessarily see that we're gonna get all that much benefit out of a survey that may or may not be designed to be as good as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, there's
That's just my
always a
own
lot.
personal opinion about surveys.
Sure.
The fidelity of the information, of the data is really tough to keep true.
I also don't know that we're gonna learn anything that we don't already have our finger on the pulse of. We've gotten a lot of input in a lot of different ways, so.
Okay, because I mean, obviously, like, people know who I am from May town meeting, and it's,
Yeah.
when are we gonna talk about grass and synthetic? Like, I keep getting asked this question, and so I don't really have the answer, so I'm
But they
trying to
haven't showed
figure
up
out.
to a single
what the-
meeting.
But it hasn't been on the
It
agenda.
absolutely-
It totally was on the
Public input
agenda.
opportunity
We've had
every
a
meeting.
Yeah,
lot
with the
of
presentations.
input on synthetic
Okay.
versus grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing.
The
like a
costing,
public
sure,
hearing
but we've
about it.
gotten rough ideas that synthetic is more expensive up front, less expensive to maintain annually, needs to be replaced 10 to 12 years, we've gotten a lot. Now, Gail will really put the cost estimates down, and we'll be able to see, and then hours of usage and stuff. I think that will be really edifying, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, and it will get done, but, I mean,
Yeah, I'm
That's
just
just-
concerned about the time crunch.
Yeah. No,
is
we
really
all
where-
are, that's
and
for sure.
Really concerned about the time crunch.
All right.
Yeah, you should be. We should, we all are. We should be.
Any other questions about the prioritization? No? Thoughts,
When,
ideas?
when will Gail be here, do you know?
So, we've got a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, correct?
Yep.
We, whatever reason, PMBC was unable to meet tonight, and
Couldn't find a room.
Aren't they meeting with Gail on Monday?
They were supposed to meet with Gail tonight to finalize, or they were supposed to meet tonight to discuss the contract. I was told that they could not find a room to meet in tonight, which bothers me.
I was told that on Monday.
Yeah, that would,
I would have foregone this room.
So anyway,
I don't know,
anyway.
someplace else. But the PMBC is scheduled to meet Monday night with Gail. John Perry is the gentleman that showed up last week to the PMBC meeting. He'll be showing up next Monday at 7 PM to meet with you folks to discuss the contract. So I'm not sure that's an open meeting. If it's discussing a contract, I would imagine it's executive session, but I don't know that to be the case. But he has committed to coming up here for Thursday. He can't come Tuesday or Wednesday, but he said he could move some stuff around in order to be here for Thursday. Our meeting right now is scheduled for Tuesday in this room. And, yeah, because Mike's scheduled that's covered, right?
I think we should try to meet Thursday.
Thursday is the fundraiser.
That's why we didn't do it Thursday.
But what time's kickoff?
8:30.
So let's meet at 7. And if we go late, we go late.
So we're meeting on Thursday now? On Tuesday.
Well, we can't meet Tuesday and Wednesday because they can't meet. So either we don't meet next week with them or we meet on Thursday. We can't not meet with them next week. We have to meet with them.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to meet them at the, like,
Yeah.
soonest available.
Yeah, so we could potentially post for Monday and meet, if they're meeting with PMBC at 7, we could either have a joint meeting or we could go back to back. If we do that, we have to post tomorrow. So, read the calendar?
I can do either. I don't know if you-
So Monday is the 19th. I will not be at the JV football game.
Monday works for me.
Well,
I
what?
just don't know how feasible that is.
Yeah, I'm worried about the feasibility of it.
All right, so Thursday the 22nd, 100 Good Men starts at 7. Is it possible for folks to meet at 6?
I can meet at 6.
I don't know if John can. I can reach out to him and ask him. 6 PM, is that possible? Can you get here by 6?
It's tentative. Probably like,
Yeah, I mean, we're not even sure he can do it.
no, I know that.
Yep. So,
But we want a quorum. I mean, if we're gonna ask him to come here, we want
it's
to make
100
sure.
men. Are there 5 with us? No, there's not.
I think I left my phones in the car.
The 100
so-
Good Men will happen with or without us. It'll happen.
We'll be there, no matter what time you guys show up.
Exactly. So,
All right, so let me reach out to John.
Oh,
And as of right now, we're meeting
Can I retract that?
Tuesday at 7 PM, correct? You guys are meeting Monday at 6.
Yeah.
All right, so,
although I don't see any need to meet on Tuesday. If we can't get them there, we're going to meet on Thursday
I
anyway.
agree. I think the reason we had it on Tuesday was thinking that the PMBC was going to be able to be done.
And we can't meet Wednesday.
He can't do it.
Carl,
Well, it's
You meet on
possible.
Monday.
Oh, right, Wednesday might work.
Did you not say that the designer couldn't meet
oh, he
Wednesday?
can't do Wednesday, right?
Oh,
That's
okay.
The reason we're doing Thursday. Dang it. It's because there was a bunch of us up here.
Yeah, Monday was the only
Did we meet at the bar? Is that legit
Yeah,
to post
no.
at the bar? Oh,
It's not even in town.
details.
Yeah. LCTV, you guys have a hookup over at the Williamsville? Working on it.
That's not going to be a quick meeting, do you think?
I don't think that's going to be a long meeting. I think it's going to be,
Talking over the priorities
Yeah.
and timelines and that kind of thing,
you
and then.
go get a schematic done
Right.
with our priorities.
Right.
And come back to us, hopefully, what did you say, Carl, 10 days to 2 weeks to come back with cost estimates and a design?
Yeah.
2 weeks.
I mean, he was talking about meeting the deadline.
Yeah, so, all I can do is ask, right? And if we can't get him here on Thursday, I think we just go for the next available day that he can get here. And we go for 5 people, whether those 5 happen to be. If everybody can make it, great, but if all we get is 5 to have our meeting, we need to have that meeting. All right.
So you're
Because
saying
actually-
26th at 6 o'clock.
Actually, we were saying that the 28th would be the kickoff.
Right, that's the kickoff with PMBC. I think we were hoping that we could get with them first, before that.
All right, so I'm going to try to get him in here Thursday.
Okay.
If we can't get him in here Thursday, then
There's no school committee, so that'll work. You can have this, well, we won't be in this room.
so that's Thursday, September 22nd.
So no Monday, no joint meeting on Monday.
So PMBC is meeting on Monday, but they're not televising it. So as far as
Just asking. what you guys
LCTV is
are doing.
concerned,
As a Littleton, come over here. As a Littleton resident, are you meeting jointly with PMBC on Monday? Or are you trying to?
no.
Okay.
Do you guys want me to post, are more than 5 of us going to be in the room? More than 5 of us going to be in the room?
That's- You said 6 o'clock, right?
6 o'clock.
Yep.
Wait a minute. If it's not gonna be that big a meeting, if we're just trying to give them the priorities and get timelines and stuff, why are we giving up on Monday so quick? I know it might be tough, but why don't we post for Monday? And if we can pull it off, let's pull it off. And if we can't, then let's go for Thursday.
So that's after the PMBC meeting or a joint
Well,
meeting?
I wouldn't even call it a joint meeting. What I would call it is he goes into PMBC, right, they
Yeah, that's
execute.
after.
He walks out of PMBC into Afrac. We're in a different room.
It could be the same room, just back to back.
Well,
You guys
you guys have other
right?
business though, don't you?
Yeah, but we were hoping to do that before.
So 6:30 to
Right.
7, they're going to be doing their deliberations and
Right.
ironing out whatever questions they need to
Right.
iron out with.
And then you're gonna be
At
done
7.
with him, but you guys might have more
No,
business
no,
to
no,
transact.
no, at 6:30, it's just PMBC. At 7 o'clock, Gail is there. So say at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, PMBC is done with Gail. Does PMBC have any additional business, fire station, library,
Yeah, but we hope to do that prior to meeting with
Gail?
Gail.
So 6:30 is not, so that's
Is not-
that's your other business, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood Joe.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from my conversation.
All right. So you're thinking, so the point being that we think Gail is you're gonna meet with Gail around 7, right, because you're gonna do all that other
Yeah.
stuff first. So if we posted for 8, we might be able to pull that off.
On the 19th.
And we're just gonna have to post for tomorrow and then try to work it out, and then everybody's just gonna have to be on standby. We'll let them know by Friday. We should know what's gonna happen, if that's feasible.
I'll try to get to you guys as soon as I get confirmation that we can get a room, or we can piggyback on their room. I will let LCT, for 307 and 103, obviously it's a piece of cake. Well, there's coverage issues, but,
What'd you say, 7:30 or 8?
I think you guys need an hour probably.
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
You're executing the contract at that point? Is that what's happening at PMBC? Like, is that what your meeting's for?
We're agreeing on the contract.
But PMBC would have to sign it.
Yeah.
You're going to vote on it, so the chairman and yourself, I would imagine, would sign it. To execute it, so essentially, yes, it'll be
Would-
executed.
Let's try, we'll make sure we get all our
Yeah.
Ts crossed and Is dotted, and if we don't, we don't. But if we do, then we can meet Monday. Let's do it.
No, Tuesday will be off the table.
Tuesday's definitely off the table because they can't meet with us on Tuesday. so.
Do I need to reach out to Mark?
He might actually like that, because he's already gonna be in Littleton.
Yeah.
Saves him a trip.
Right.
he might be all rocking and rolling on that.
And then we said our next meeting was after that? Say the 28th? Did you say?
Yes. We did, we scheduled the 28th.
That's 7, right?
Yes.
Here?
And is that the joint, is that a joint kickoff meeting with
I have-
PMBC?
At the 27th.
It's probably in school for me.
8 o'clock on the
Good thing
22nd.
that resident is here on the calendar.
No. 8
Oh, it
o'clock
is.
on
No,
the
Mike's right. I
19th.
have the 27th too. Oop. Yeah, 28th was PMBC. Tuesday the 27th.
Right there, 8 o'clock. We don't, place to be determined.
8 o'clock.
So we,
Oh, good.
Tuesday, the 27th is the next one.
It's 7 o'clock.
Let's just take care of that. We posted all our other meetings we have tentatively planned, we're good, let's just get past next week.
So is Tuesday next week?
That's definitely out.
Yes, Tuesday next week is out.
Okay.
Monday or Thursday?
I have to get back to you as soon as I can
Right,
confirm.
that we don't know.
So it's either the 19th or 22nd. 19th would be at
8, probably.
8, because it'll be after ABC. And if it's Thursday, it'll likely be
So, well,
6, 6:30.
7. Depends on them, it's gonna depend on him more than
The earliest he
anything.
can accommodate us. All right. So Judith, I'll follow up with Mark and Kirby tomorrow.
Sure.
Thank you. And you'll let them know as far as Tuesday is concerned?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Be on the 20th, yes, we'll be on the 27th, be on the 4th, 12th, and 18th of October. Just look that up. All right. Anything else on the discussion of the project priorities? We kind of just jumped ahead to schedule meetings. As far as an agenda item for the scheduling of meetings, I think we're just got the scope and then the priorities and discussions.
And they're gonna go
with the
execute.
designer.
Yeah, they're gonna go execute. Timeline, that's gonna be a big one, you know, getting, they know it. They know we're tight, and they were advised of that, and they didn't seem worried about it. They really said it was more on us than them. But having said that, you know, we gotta work with them to make sure we can get it to work in terms of having opportunities for public input and, you know, iterations, so that we make sure we're happy with what they're proposing.
Well, and to that point, I think, you know, people look at agendas and see, oh, what are they talking about this week? What are they talking about that week? So when we have the costs and we're going to be, you know, just to cover the bases and do what we said we were going to do as far as like a public hearing, I think it would be really important to put, you know, cost presentation and discussion of
Oh, yeah, for
field
sure,
surface.
yep.
I'd just like to make sure that detail is in it,
Oh,
so
yeah, yep.
people don't come back later and be like, well, I wanted to show up for
Right,
the
you
agenda.
shouldn't just
didn't
say meeting
so."
with Gail. Right,
Yeah,
you should, yeah.
so if we could add, I think
Yep.
that would be.
Some more detail.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on the board? Anybody? Kelly?
Kelly Mullen, 25 Washington Drive, Littleton. Do we need to, a couple of things. First, I know we talked about Snack Shack, we talked about ticket booth, but I didn't hear any mention about the sales booth for the boosters with all the products in it. And then next, do we need to give them parameters such as Snack Shack has to have 3 serving windows? We want long, short bleachers versus tall, narrow bleachers.
So, all those things are gonna get hashed out when we have the talk with them. Because
Okay.
we haven't done any of that yet, because we haven't had them. They're not under contract yet. So when they're under contract, when we start talking about priorities, that stuff will clearly get discussed, some basic outlines. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna tell them, we minimally want this, and they do this for a living, so they're gonna say, okay, well, we can do that plus this and keep you on your cost line for that piece of the job. in terms of the apparel, concessions, I think, is we're using as a catch-all term for fundraising opportunities by selling stuff at Alumni Field, whether it's food or,
And additionally, I mean, the existing snack shack may remain and become a storage facility. It may become the apparel concession area.
But-
I think the other one likely will come down, but I don't know about that either, because that's where the whole transformer, so those buildings that are currently there, it has to be determined whether or not those will be raised or repurposed. There's a possibility, somebody mentioned to me, if we don't use the ticket booth that we just got, we can repurpose that and use that as the apparel.
No.
No?
Too small. It's too small.
There's a pretty smart person that gave me that.
There won't be much apparel sold that
No.
day.
All right. It's a pretty big shed. We fit the portable mound in there.
It's off.
All right. Kelly, you said you had a couple of things. Hang on a second, Erin.
Well, that was basically, at what point do we discuss how big we want these things, or what
when we get,
shape or
yeah, we gotta get them at
size?
the table with us, and that'll start happening for sure.
Erin, and we'll get to you, but Mr. Del Lorenzo did have.
Yeah, that's good.
Derek Del Lorenzo, Green Needles Road. I guess, first of all, thank you very much for all the work you're doing. I know you're spending a lot of time now with your families and meeting on this, so it's appreciated. To that point, I'm wondering if you guys have already discussed an exit strategy for this committee. I would guess you are not intending to be a part of a committee in perpetuity, and that at some point that there would be a handoff to some other organization inside the town. I'm just curious what those thoughts are.
Thank you for the thank yous. And thanks for coming out and asking the question. But as far as the exit strategy, part of the handoff is somewhat up in the air, Derek. And part of the reason for that is because right now, all of our fields have multiple hands in the pot, sort of. We have a memorandum of understanding that has Park and Rec managing the fields. They're owned by the schools. The highway department maintains them, and the board of selectmen kind of oversees all of that. So there is no one person that kind of owns that handoff. So it's a great question. It's something that we, I guess, can kind of help that ball to start rolling. But I think it's the board of selectmen's responsibility to clear this up. And the memorandum of understanding was in place for several years, then it was redone, I think, about 6 years ago. Right after I got on the school committee, I was part of that with Park and Rec and Board of Selectmen and the Highway Department. I think it needs to be tightened up so that that facility and whatever capacity that we turn it over has a single point of contact for responsibility, whether that's the athletic director or the highway department or the school committee, or maybe we have a new committee that is designed to just schedule, manage, maintain. So it hasn't been determined. We haven't taken that on as our charge. I think that falls clearly on the lap of the board of selectmen.
So what should probably happen is that once we get to town meeting in a design, because this is what this was about, the design. Once that's done, this committee will probably start to think about being done, because PMBC will supervise the build. We would never do that. We don't have the capacity or the capability, or the cognitive capability to do that. They would build it. Then, because it's on school property, and this happens with the school buildings and the track, the school committee would accept the project when they're finally done with it, and they're no longer in charge of it, because they're only in charge of it getting built, not maintained or, administered in any capacity. Then the school committee would accept the facility, and then we got to go hack out, what does that mean in terms of who owns what aspects of it. The memorandum of understanding between the three parties, I think all three bodies have recognized that it's probably a good time to revisit that and think about, is it really getting the job done? If it's not, what can we do to make it better? Do we blow it up and start over again, or do we tweak it? But that's separate from this committee, for sure.
I would recommend that, however that is going to be handled, that there is some semblance of that at town meeting. I would hate to see people feel concerned that if that is not hashed out, we're being told that that'll get figured out later. The answer is going to be, you're not guaranteeing me that we're not going to be in the same position that we are today at some other point.
That's going to be tough to do prior to town meeting, because that's going to be a protracted process, and, I mean, I think, and
We have
that,
started to put that process. in
yeah,
place.
we're talking about it, but we're not going to get done. There's no way we would be able to get done with that, I don't think, anyway. I mean, I guess we try, I understand your point, I think it's a valid point, but I would trust that, you know, a majority of people would feel like, yeah, that problem needs to get solved, whether we rebuild Alumni Field or not, that problem's got to get solved. If for whatever reason this doesn't get done because the town just decides they don't have it in them to do it right now, we'd still go back and look at the MOU, because the MOU's got other fields and other things, a lot of other encompassing things that we got to deal with. So that's going to happen anyway. So I would hope that people weren't thinking, well, I'm only going to vote for Alumni Field if you guys get your act together. We're going to get our act together no matter what we do. You know, we have to, you know.
So as a citizen, there's no promise of that in any way. So just know that. I mean, without having a clear plan on how this is going to be maintained going forward.
Well, there is a plan though.
So-
Yeah, there is a, yeah.
Well, no, because there's pieces of that too. I mean, ownership is part of the maintenance process. Okay, who owns that, and it's ensuring that it is what needs to happen is happening, and so that we're not trying to pull a committee together every time.
No. We have fields, we have facilities, they all get maintained. There's work done week by week by week, month by month by month, season by season by season. It's a fallacy to think that nobody owns the process for maintaining the fields. It's done. Now, is it done well enough? If it's not on the fact that there is no process, it's on time and materials. I mean, that part, you can get
Correct.
addressed, but...
But isn't that part of the process here is ensuring that, here's what it's going to cost, here's what the maintenance budget is going to need to be, here's where that maintenance budget is going to be housed to ensure that these things are going to happen.
You gotta talk to the Board of Selectmen on that, because they're in charge of making sure that all the town services get provided, whether it's maintenance of fields, public safety, highway, and if it's not getting done to the extent anybody or any group of people would like to see, you need to go talk to your Board of Selectmen and put pressure on them to get them to do more and better work. Because the thing is it's not like they're ignoring it, it's not like they don't want to do better, but when you're asking for that, it's going to be at the expense of something else. Because they're already divvied up the pie and there's nothing left over. So if they're going to change the way they divvy up the pie, they're going to have to take it from somewhere else to do that. And that's fine, you know, we should be reevaluating what our priorities are and where we decide to spend money and how we get the most benefit to the town out of how we spend our budget overall. We're spending money on the fields. We maintain our fields, we maintain our buildings, we do capital, we do a lot of that. Is it enough? I'll leave it to each person to make up their own mind. Is your tax rate high enough? Are you willing to have it be higher? Are you willing to do without something else to get the thing you think we need more of? All those things get sorted out at town meeting every year. And it's never perfect.
I agree, I think that's going to come up this time around too, specifically in connection to this field project and proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 second, Eric.
Erin Healy, Lincoln Drive. I'm also on the Sustainability Committee, and I came by just to see where you guys were at, because I didn't know, and try to get it, I'm going to put it on the agenda for next week so that we can get you some feedback. But just overall, and I think this kind of feeds into the communication piece, especially when you're trying to get the public to understand the project. You know, rather if you do a survey, you're starting like where they're at. So I would recommend that you focus more on education and outreach in a very clear manner, and have your contractor do that. And integrating sustainability principles in doing that, and looking at short and long-term benefits and effects and cost, and also looking at cost and the sustainability elements of water, vegetation, air, and health. And if you could use that as a guideline for communicating to the public, I think it'll be much clearer to people on how these things compare. Also, just specifically, there's a few things that like I said, I haven't met with the committee yet, and we can put something in writing, but I think what will come out of it is there are integration of sustainability principles into your design and construction, and I'm not quite sure where that comes into your contracting process. If that comes in now, when you're working with the design engineers, I don't think it would hurt to give them a heads up that that's important. And always, when you're looking at the sustainability, you always want to include costs, both short and long-term costs, so that you're communicating the true value of the investment, how much it's costing now, but also what it means in the long term. Low-impact development is a principle that engineers will be familiar with, and that's, there's a lot of different components to that. A lot of it has to do with drainage and water. Water is, as we know, this summer is a scarce resource. So when you're looking at your alternatives, if you could include water in that, I think it'll be really helpful, both for getting a good project and communication. Along with low impact development, if there are, I'm not sure if it's included specifically in those principles, but your landscaping, there are ways to do it in a sustainable manner where you can reduce your maintenance, which is going to reduce your cost. And that's where you get into the short and long term, where you're looking at the initial investment versus your long term. You could reduce maintenance and also reduce human health and environmental effects by doing natural fields rather than manicured lawns. Of course, you need it on the field, but two more things. One is I really appreciate you guys doing this too. It's a lot of work. You guys seem to be really well organized. And the second thing is if there's any way that the Sustainability Committee can help you along the way with anything, if you could let us know, we'd appreciate it.
Erin, thank you for coming out. At our last meeting, Julie, did you ask if the Sustainability Committee had been contacted? So Julie asked if anybody reached out, so that's why I reached out to you this week and said, hey, we'd love to get some insight from you. So I appreciate you putting it on the agenda, and in turn, we'll put you and/or the Sustainability Committee, if you want some time on our agenda, we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with integration of those principles into your contracting mechanisms and where that happens, and to start the conversation with Gail at the beginning, not at the end. So just make them aware that that's a concern. And also always attach the cost, short and long term. Because otherwise it's going to be, that's too expensive. Well, maybe it's not in the big picture. And when you get to your alternatives analysis, when you're doing the communication of the turf, natural and artificial, and the different types of artificial, I think that's going to be important.
Thanks. Eric.
Good morning, Fox Lane. A few things. The public forums, I was wondering, are those going to be, or that going to be scheduled prior to the surface being decided?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And in the scope of work, I know there had been some discussion about holding playoffs at the field if we get it renovated, and nowhere in the scope of work did I hear anything about, meeting the MIA regulations, because there are certain regulations that they follow. And I know for like lacrosse, one of those is it has to hold at least 1,000 people and have adequate parking for those people. And, if we have parking in our tier 3, is what we currently have adequate to park 1,000 people? I just don't think.
I can't necessarily speak to that specifically. Mike, if you're comfortable doing
Well,
that.
what I'd like to do is, I would like to have Mike go in as the AD, come up with the requirements for hosting various, so we're talking about football, lacrosse, field hockey, I guess soccer. So if you could just give us, this committee, a list of what those requirements are, then we can see if we're, in the ballpark to do that, and if we're not, how close are we, and what it would require to get over the top.
Are you talking about neutral site?
Yeah,
Like-
hosting neutral site contests. Okay? Just get it back to us, and then we can...
Why would we want to be in that market?
Well, if we have an opportunity to be...
There's no money in it. you do not pay money for that.
Will we be able to get
You're
the
volunteering your facility to the MIA. And essentially their mindset is, well, you can sell concessions, you don't get the ticket money. The AD or whoever's the site person, which I imagine would be me, gets paid a fee to be there that night, but they do not pay money.
So why do other people do it?
Because the MIA would tell you that every school district, you are the MIA. That's what that's their position, that you are the MIA and you are essentially,
So if you can, they make you? Like, I guess I'm, like, so let's say Shrewsbury, they have a wonderful facility.
Mhm.
Why would they put up with all that aggravation just because they have the capacity?
Because the MIA comes banging on your door asking you, please do this.
And it's hard to say no.
And it's hard to say no. It's one thing, if we do get a brand new facility with a synthetic field, it's one of the things I would not be looking forward to, if I'm being honest.
If we had everything else in place.
That the MIA would probably be asking, hey, can you do this, can you do that? And, I'm not sure with the volume of usage that our facility would probably see, would we even be in that market. But there are certain schools that are in that market, but a lot of times the neutral sites are held at college facilities.
Right.
I'm pretty sure they do pay the college facilities. They don't pay high school facilities. They will pay they pay big money for the garden and the DCU center and those types of facilities. Some of the colleges, I don't think they charge them that much money because the colleges want the people on their campus to come and see their school and potentially it's marketing for them. But as far as member schools, it's typically just Good Samaritan Act.
Concessions. I'm sure they sell hard that you can make money in concessions.
Concessions, yes, but a lot of my colleagues are quite tired. You places like Wachusett, Hudson, Shrewsbury, you mentioned some of those schools. They see a lot of. They have great facilities. They have those Shrewsbury and Wachusett have those field houses, and the MIA asks a lot of them sometimes. But as far as all they ask you on the have to do entry forms for all of our tournaments. You enter the rosters, but they just basically ask, is your facility suitable for tournament play? That's as far as
to host, if you were going to host your team and the opponent there. But if you were going to do neutral site, they would come seeking you probably?
They don't use the neutral sites, the high schools, that often. It's only usually for like tournaments that probably aren't going to draw huge amounts of people for neutral sites. Okay. So like we played neutral games at like Grafton High School in the sport like field hockey.
Okay.
There's a few hundred people there at a district championship game or district semifinal game. So
neutral site football, they would never look to use Littleton. Neutral site soccer?
Yes, they do. But once you get to the district, yes.
Neutral site soccer maybe. Neutral site field hockey maybe. Neutral site lacrosse, do they play those at high schools?
They can. But most of the time, though, actually, every tournament is different. Lacrosse stays at site of higher seed, like all the way to the district championship, honestly. I think the district semifinal even is played at the site of the higher seed because spring is such a hard time to get any type of facilities because of how many things colleges and schools and facilities have going on. So it does vary. You're obviously very familiar with the basketball format. The basketball format's different than the baseball and lacrosse formats. Even the current football format stays at site of higher seed all the way to the district championship. Changed last year in Central Mass to being at a neutral site for the district championship, but in the other areas of the state, that's even at the higher seed. So it varies from tournament to tournament.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think it's wholly
Sounds like
viable.
it's not a priority. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I know that when we were building the track, so to answer that question though, when we were building the track, there was talk, if we build this track, it'll be such a facility that we could do. And honestly, for track, our track is, I was saying that back then, will never be a district, a site of sectional meets because of the situation with our track. We're just, the way we're kind of stuck in that corner over there. The field obviously is in a much different situation. If there was no school events going on, we would have ample parking and routes of egress to get to the field from, whether at the middle school or surrounding lots or Russell Street. I feel like most events I've been to the MIA that I went to neutral sites, it would be suitable. I'm not saying we're going to be a big neutral site facility.
So given that, it's possible that it would be suitable, but we don't necessarily want them to know it.
Yeah, I
We don't want to
mean,
be so suitable that they're like chomping at the bit to get the little thing.
some of my colleagues have had really long nights
Yeah.
hosting events with 2 schools or 4 schools if they've doubled up games. Not one of those schools is their own, and they come away from that, they had all kinds of problems, they had to, it's a lot to ask, and most schools are saying, MIA, when you go to the neutrals, you should probably not asking this of your member schools, you should be
Seeking out
You
colleges.
should be seeking out college facilities. It's a lot to ask of people who are already out. I have over 60 nights a year for work commitment, so then you're piling on more of that. I don't think that a lot of people want to do that.
Okay.
Mike, does the MIA pay for the details? Or
They
do-
will pay for, yes, I would say yes, they pay for those expenses like, tournament by tournament varies. In the hockey tournament, when we have home games, yes, I send them all the bills, but we don't make a penny.
Yeah.
But in the basketball tournament, it's a profit sharing, it's a 50-50 split, and you hope to make enough to cover all your expenses and your 50% of the game, because you have to send the other 50% back to them. So again, tournament to tournament, it varies greatly. Every tournament format, and the tournament format documents are available on the MI website. You can see them right there. And they typically, those documents will outline to you when it goes to neutrals, and what maybe the profit sharing situation is, if there is one. And those are all on the MI website.
Eric just had a couple, Kelly, I'll get back to you.
This, just so you know, this has to do with what Mike's talking about. So if,
Okay. Go ahead.
okay, I just want to, we just talked about neutral sites and not potentially wanting to do that. Is there anything, Mike, that we need to do to make sure that we can host what we need to host that our teams are playing on? And I know, like, you get to the Super Bowl, we've gone to Gillette, we've gone to Westfield State, but is there any of those games before that we could potentially play in for any of our sports? Is there anything that's kind of a must-have to make sure we can keep our home field advantage?
That we're not already contemplating doing.
Yes.
Yes. So, again, if they were going to use school facilities, they would probably seek out, I'm just going to use as an example, the football sectional finals in Central Mass.
No. Kelly's asking if we're playing in the game.
Yeah.
So we're the higher seed. Is there anything that we're not contemplating doing that you need to get done?
So that we
In order
don't,
to be able to hold.
so that we
Yeah,
don't
so
lose
that we don't get
home
moved
field
off of our field to go somewhere else.
Our field as it currently.
No, that what we're projecting to do, what we're
Okay.
proposing to do.
Correct.
Is there anything else?
Is there anything that you need done that's not on this list, that if it doesn't get done, you're like, holy crap, we can't even host our own games?
No, I believe that if we get this project, we'll be in a tremendous situation to do everything we want to do.
Okay.
Okay.
With our current field,
I knew the answer, I just wanted to make sure he was answering the right
with our
question.
current field, when it asks, is your field suitable for tournament play? If I'm talking about Alumni Field, it's hard to in good conscience say yes,
Right.
because
Right.
the state of
The reason why.
degradation there is,
Yeah, yeah.
all the different things we've been talking about.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Kelly? Thank you, Eric.
Mike had mentioned that when you were interviewing designers, they each had preliminary plans. With respect to the bathrooms, did they have a plan of like how many bathrooms they think we would need?
I think they did, didn't they?
No.
No, I think it was like a,
It was conceptual.
Yeah, they didn't get to that level, it was like the outside of the building.
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't
We can
show
put
the
bathrooms
inside.
here, or we
Yeah,
can-
they
we can
definitely
put them
didn't
under the
cost it.
bleachers, or we can put them in a separate building. That
Right.
was the resolution, but it was, I think it was like the discussion about, and we have to follow the plumbing code.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
dependent-
if you have a certain number of bleachers, you need,
Yeah, depending on the capacity.
more bathrooms than we were anticipating having to consider. I don't remember, I don't want to say the number, because I don't remember the exact number, but that's, really- it wasn't on a plan or anything.
So with respect to the plumbing code, I'm just wondering when we'll know that, because from reading from what happened with Concord Carlisle, they didn't find out until they were already in the construction phase, and I'm wondering why it took that long for them to find out what situation they were going to be in, and are we going to be in a situation where we don't know what our costs are until we're already down that road?
So I've got that as one of my heavy rocks.
Well, but the real question though is, no. They'll tell us what they think we need and how much it's gonna cost based on what the scope of the project is, the size of the bleachers and whatever else they have to take into account. They will tell us, you need this many bathrooms and this is what it's gonna cost you to do it, along with all the costs associated with everything else that we're asking to do. And then we'll be able to make a determination about where it fits in the budget or if it doesn't, and then we'll be able to make our decisions on priority. I don't know what happened in Concord Carlisle. That's shocking to, I don't know how that could happen.
So I think one of the issues there, they did their build in 3 or 4 phases, I think, and this is the bathrooms are part of phase 3 or 4. So they had built all their fields, they're in phase 1 and 2. I think they do still have some fields that they're doing as well. But then, and not to mention, it's being financed by a nonprofit.
CC at Play.
Yeah, so when it came time to estimating how much it cost for that, and they started bringing in the code, they realized they weren't going to be able to have the money for it.
But shouldn't
So-
we have a design with all those costs out?
Yeah, we're gonna,
for
yeah,
the
absolutely.
build?
We're only doing
Construction?
it, we're one phase.
Absolutely.
We're
We're
not,
one phase,
But
so.
wouldn't you, well, we're 2 phases now, right? But
No, we're one phase, 2 pieces of a project, but one phase. It's all gonna get done at the same time.
Okay. But wouldn't you design all 4 phases? I mean, they designed all 4 phases, right?
no. Concord?
Yeah.
I don't believe, that's not what I took from the article.
No, that's how I understand.
We will have all cost estimates, and we will know exactly if we're gonna put this many bathrooms in, it'll cost this much. If we can get away with this many bathrooms, it'll cost that much.
I anticipate Gail is going to design it to the highest code.
Well, I think
That's what I anticipate.
what possibly,
And then conversations with John.
what possibly could have happened, just based on my understanding of some of the design and construction, is you can design something, and then if you plan to construct it in phases, the code can change.
Right.
Before you obtain any permits, before you do anything, your code can change, or, or something else costs more, so you have less for whatever. So there are many, many, many moving parts and factors in that type of project. So, that's speculation, but that's one, potential answer of how that could have happened. But, we know, I feel like we have a pretty good handle on, this is something we need to watch out for.
So I am trying to gather information. I've got some folks that I've reached out to that know this stuff. I've just haven't heard back from them. I tried to take a picture of the bathroom stall at Western New England, but my son Tucker thought I was a creep taking a picture.
Creepy guy in the bathroom.
But literally, it's a urinal and a stall. And there was 4,000 people there on Saturday.
Was there anyone in the,
It seemed like that. Well, it was Westfield, so they're just 20 minutes down the road, so it was packed, it was packed. There was no seats, like a lot of people standing. But I was baffled by the fact that they had a total of 4 places to go to the bathroom. And it wasn't like they had porta potties to, anyway, I was baffled. Mention that, right? Did you have anything else there?
That's it.
All right, thanks. Anybody else? All right, I think we're okay. Do you guys have anything to add? Is there anything we need to discuss? So right now, we're going to work for Monday at 8 o'clock at the town hall, right after the PMBC meets, with John Perry from Gale. I can't imagine there's any reason that wouldn't.
He'll probably be okay with it. It's
I
just
think
a
he's
question
fine
of
with
fitting it into I think more of a question of fitting it into the PMBC agenda.
So, I think that we're good. So the only other thing is, if we don't do Monday, we'll do Thursday the 22nd.
So if he comes back and says he can do Monday, he can stay late, do we still have to wait to hear from the PMBC, or
Yeah,
are we?
we have to, we're gonna have to
We won't know
post.
until Monday? Before we
Yeah,
know?
it's a possibility that they'll come out of that meeting and say, we didn't get enough done, we can't meet with you. And that'll be it'll just have to happen.
I don't want to make.
It's worth the bet.
Derek used the word promise earlier. I don't want to make a promise that John will work with us as if he's 100% under contract, but I feel pretty confident that he will in fact have that meeting with us as if.
I would say the probability is very high that we can make this work, so we should try it.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, moving second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
You can say so moved when he does that. You say so moved.
Keep coaching.
Thank you very much, everybody. So Monday night at 8 o'clock, we are planning on meeting, and it's a location to be named later.